Hello citrus fans! 1 year ago we received Budwood from the California Citrus Clonal Protection Program, and we were able to successfully graft a few trees, and this time we're going to look at and see how they're doing. But first we're going to look at the Budwood that we recently received. This is stuff that we selected and received from them. So today we have in the box an Australian red pulp finger lime, and then we have a mellow gold grapefruit, and then a king tanger, and then a couple of pomelos. This is the Monto Bunto Buntan pomelo, and then we have the Valentine pomelo hybrid. So I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about these. So the first one, or we're just going to go reverse order now. This is a Valentine pomelo hybrid. This is looking to be a very interesting red pulp pomelo, and it looks very delicious and juicy. The next one is a Monto Buntan pomelo. This is a one that's cultivated from Japan. This is a king tanger. It's also known as a king mandarin. In Vietnam, it's called a cam sa. This next one is a mellow gold grapefruit. It's the sister to the Oro Blanco, and the Oro Blanco is a very popular grapefruit because it grows well in cooler climates. This is supposed to be the warmer sister. And last year we got this and was not successful at grafting either T-bud or cleft, so we're going to try it again. Hopefully we can do it with success. And then the last one is this Australian red pulp finger lime. This is another citrus that's more on the novelty side. So they're also known as caviar limes or citrus because the individual, I'm forgetting the name of the thing, but the individual, when you take it apart, it's got little tiny pieces of pulp, and it resembles caviar. So it's a pretty interesting lime. The reason we picked this is because last year in the triple digit temperatures where my brother is at, I think it got up to 120 degrees. Well, his finger lime that he purchased from the nursery was baked by the heat. It didn't survive, not because of the heat, but because he thought his drip line irrigation was over the pot. And what happened was that the root mass was really dry and it wasn't able to support itself and also support the top. So what happened was the top portion, the scion, died, and luckily the rootstock is still alive, so we still have a rootstock to graft something on to, and hopefully we can get this finger lime on that rootstock. So those are the bud woods or bud sticks that we received, and we're gonna go and graft them. Depending on how much time we have, we'll either graft them together, or maybe I'll just go ahead and graft them off camera and come back and do an update later on how they're doing. But definitely very exciting times for us. Enough to get me out of my my cave that I've been hiding in for the last, I think, 6 or 8 months. So it's very nice to be out in the garden and be back in front of the camera and talking to you guys. So yeah. All right, next step, or next part of the segment, we're going to be talking about how our citrus are doing since last year. Some of this is going to be a little bit more detailed, so I'm going to try to get it to as quick as possible, but there's a lot of cool things from our grafting experiment. And the first thing is this cocktail tree that we made. It's been a very, very interesting tree to watch. So first thing is that we learned that when it comes to grafting, you can't just put any type of citrus together. Yeah, they'll graft, they'll grow, the graft will be successful, they'll grow on top of one another. But I've learned that the flavor can be affected by what you graft the citrus onto. So for example, we didn't know that we shouldn't be grafting a sweet orange onto a sour citrus portion, and we did that by grafting this Bahobza blood orange onto this Eureka lemon. And we have this really cool cocktail tree, but the fruit off of this portion of the tree may not taste very good. And I'm one to find out for myself. I'm one to see how things grow and do. So we're not going to erase this mistake, this possible mistake, but instead, you know, watch it and see how it plays out. So on top of here, we have this cleft graft, and it's healed back very nicely, and we're starting to see buds push out from this portion of the tree now. So it'll be very exciting to see whether we have something to taste later this year or early next year, or if we have to wait another year. On this other portion of the tree, which is the Eureka lemon, we have buds that are pushing out, and you can see the contrast in the buds. The lemon buds tend to have a little bit more pinkish purplish hue on them, and it's growing nicely. Two things that we should have done and only done recently, and this is all in hindsight. There was actually a couple significant branches that was growing underneath here, underneath our Bahobza blood orange, and they've since been removed, but I think we should have removed them earlier so that the energy that's being drawn up by the rootstock to the top is not spread out between so many portions. We probably would have seen more vigorous growth if we had concentrated it onto these two main branches here. The second thing that we did recently was we cut back our bud stick. So we received a pretty significantly long bud stick, and it had more than 6 buds on there, and literature says that we should limit the cleft graft bud stick to about 5 or 6 buds, and I'm one to break rules to see what happens. And I guess it makes sense that you want to limit your bud sticks to 5 or 6 buds, because once again, that energy that's coming up from the rootstock is being spread out to so many portions. So we were seeing growth that was happening, but not as at a vigorous rate. So this bud stick was recently cut back to about 5 buds. So we have or to where 5 buds became these lateral branches here. The other very interesting thing is that on this cleft graft, these cleft grafts are a little bit more technical to do. They're a little bit harder to get to grow successfully, and that's because you have to line up the cambium between your bud stick with the tree, and if you don't line it up properly, it's not going to make the connection. The stick will die, and that's a very, very thin line that you have to get in there correctly. So yeah, as a backup, we did a T-bud down here, and what's very interesting is that this T-bud, the bud here is still alive, and we're going to see how long this bud stays alive. The reason it's not pushing out and turning into a branch is because of a phenomenon called apical dominance, and that basically means that all the buds down beneath the canopy here is going to stay dormant, and it will push out once it feels that the tree has been damaged. So that's why when you do T-buds, you gotta cut and damage the tree so that it sends out a new branch. So very interesting to see that it's still around. It's nice and green and healthy. So so later on, we'll see how this tree up here, our blood orange up here, tastes. If it doesn't taste very good, we'll allow this bud, if it's still around, if it's still alive, to push out and turn into a tree by chopping this and pushing it over. And we're hoping that down here on this actual rootstock that this Eureka lemon is grafted onto, hopefully this is a neutral rootstock, and it can grow into a tree that will produce a good tasting fruit for us. So that's very interesting thing to find, and we'll see how long this will stay and then see what it tastes like. So this second tree here is a little bit more special. This is also a Bahubza blood orange. We grafted this one 3 months after this one, and this was from a bud that the bud sticks that we had left in the refrigerator. So you can keep them in the refrigerator for some time and still have them be very viable for grafting. So we grafted this onto this rootstock that's much smaller, and this rootstock is special because the rootstock is grown from the seed of my late dad's citrus tree. It's a Valencia orange back at my childhood home, and I went over to get some seeds from there. Mom's over there, my brother's over there still, so I go there quite often, and we grew quite a few rootstocks. So we have this one, and it successfully turned into a Bahubza blood orange. Its rate of growth is going to be a little bit slower because if you notice on the rootstock, it's a lot thinner than this one. So imagine, if you will, if you were using these, if you got two straws, you got one that's kind of small and you got one that's kind of big, you're going to be able to suck more soda or juice out of a bigger straw than, say, a smaller one. So since this rootstock is able to draw up suck all these nutrients up and all that stuff, it grows a little bit more fast, say, compared to this, which is a little bit slower, and that's to be expected. So this thing is probably going to produce a fruit for us in maybe 2, maybe 3 years. So that's very cool to have a Bahubza blood orange and on a rootstock that's from a sweet citrus. So we're probably going to get better tasting fruit from this tree than this. So that's the theory. The last tree is one that we planted in the ground, and that one is one that amazed me because of the rate of growth on it. It was grafted. We did a T-bud graft, which is, you take a little tiny piece of the budwood and we grafted onto a rootstock from the nursery, and the rootstock is as mature as this one here, and it grew 26 inches in 11 months. And on top of that, it's pushing out buds, flower buds and blossoms, and maybe we'll get to taste an orange this year or later this year. So if the tree feels like it can support a fruit, it'll produce a fruit and we'll get an orange. And I know some of you guys are saying you should remove that fruit, let the tree concentrate on producing its root mass and its canopy, but I'm impatient and I wanted to see how it tastes. So if a tree can support a fruit, it'll produce 1 fruit or 2. And if it can't, it'll naturally drop all the buds, or if it starts to form fruit and it gets about golf ball size and it can't support it, it'll just naturally abort it and it'll just drop. So the tree knows what it's doing. But if we were to be their coach, we'd say, hey, your tree, hey, let's just chop off that orange for you, and you should concentrate on training and getting yourself bigger and before you try to get yourself into the game. So yeah, we'll look at that. I guess I'll just put video on top as I was just describing on and not actually go out there and look at it. So yeah, that's our episode today. Very interesting to see for ourselves how trees are grafted, how they grow, how they respond to certain things. And with our bud sticks here, we're gonna graft them, T-bud graft a couple so that we get a higher chance of success. And then we're gonna try to do more of these cleft grafts so that we can get a cocktail tree on some of the other citrus trees that we have growing. So yeah, that's our episode today. And if you want to learn more about the California Citrus Clonal Protection Program, which is administered by the University of California, Riverside, under the umbrella of the University of California, check out the link below to their website. They do amazing things, and the most important thing that they're trying to do these days is trying to find a cure for the citrus disease that is terminal. And these things grow like weeds out here, but in our climate, but this citrus disease is killing trees, and it's a huge threat. It's very important to get registered budwood so that you're not spreading contamination by getting your budwood from like a neighbor or a friend down the street or a friend over the county or whatever. Very important, because we want to limit the spread of disease to a small area. There's a quarantine in LA County for that reason, and we want to make sure you get registered budwood. So that's the PSA portion of this video, and we'll go ahead and sign off. I want to thank you for coming out and seeing how our trees are doing, and once again, I'm very excited to be back in the garden and doing some work in the garden, and also being on YouTube land and talking to you guys. So I'll talk to you soon. If I'm not able to respond to you, I will get to you at some point. Once again, thank you so much for supporting our channel and being a part of it. See you in the next video.